Sub-Saharan Africa, where commerce meets progress. Welcome to SOUQ News, your source for business, economy, and development insight that drive nations forward. From the vibrant streets of Lagos, Africa's fastest economic hub, SOUQ News takes you on a journey of discovery, analyzing and reporting the facts that lay the foundation for growth and development. We don't just report the news, we create it. SOUQ News is more than a channel. It is a catalyst for change, spotlighting the stories that shape economies, inspire entrepreneurs, and fuel progress. Covering business, finance, technology, energy, and many more, SOUQ News provides a daily deep dive into the stories that matter, interviews with industry titans, and analysis that empowers your understanding of economic landscape. Join us daily as we dissect, discuss, and deliver the most relevant and factual news on business and the economy. SOUQ News is your trusted guide, empowering you with the knowledge to make informed decisions. Idumota Market. Eko Idumota, once a residential neighborhood, is home to Idumota Market located on Lagos Island. It is one of the oldest and arguably one of the largest markets in West Africa. Idumota is a historic neighborhood adjacent to the Lagos port that facilitated the slave trade, and later under the British indirect rule, it surrounded to exports that fueled the colonial enterprise. Idumota was also the location of an armed forces remembrance cenotaph called Soja Idumota, built as a monument to Nigerian soldiers who served with the West African Frontier Force. An Eyo Masquerade statue and a clock tower are also some monuments at Idumota. Idumota Market is so popular that large sales are recorded as early as 7 a.m. The market is made up of hundreds of locked-up shops occupying several multi-story buildings, with some measuring about 5 or more floors. In 2010, the Lagos State government demolished some illegal structures in order to improve vehicular and human movement in and around the markets. During weekdays, the neighborhood of Idumota is densely populated by shoppers, traders, and bus passengers. From the Carter Bridge ascending into Lagos Island, passengers can see the neighborhood before disembarking at their final destination. Idumota Market accommodates the substantial inflow of imported goods. The bulk of import from abroad are routed first through Idumota and then on to other markets through Nigeria and other West and Central African countries. The energy of private Idumota traders and wholesalers facilitate this activity, where millions of US dollars worth of wholesale is exchanged daily. Idumota Market, SOUQ Enlightenment.
My name is Yinka Babalola.
My name is Ijoma Pelokoro.
My name is Joshua Hassan.
I am Rotarian or Mosunde Lawson.
It's Ife Yunwarita Ejeze. My friends call me Ife.
My name is Rotarian Lola Dare.
I'm inviting you to keep watching SOUQ News. It's the right station to tune to.
I like SOUQ News. SOUQ News is good.
I want to charge you all to listen to SOUQ News, watch the news.
You can have unlimited news first time.
Find SOUQ News. Be with SOUQ News. Never switch off. You are better for it. SOUQ News is the real thing.
Listen to their coverage and you'll be glad you did.
Turn to your YouTube, turn to your Instagram, turn to all your digital channels and look for SOUQ News.
Keep watching.
Keep watching.
Please, guys, keep watching
SOUQ News.
Lateef Jakande. Born Lateef Kayode Jakande in the Ekpetedo area of Lagos Island, Lagos State on July 1929. He studied at the Lagos Public School at Enowa, Lagos Island, then at Bonham Memorial Methodist School, Port Harcourt, King's College, enrolled at Ilesha Grammar School, where he edited a literary paper called The Quarterly Mirror. Jakande began a career in journalism in 1949 with a daily service and joined the Nigerian Tribune in 1953. The owner, Chief Obafemi Awolowo, appointed Jakande editor-in-chief of the Tribune in 1956. Jakande established John West Publications in 1975 after leaving Tribune and began to publish the Lagos News. He served as the first president of the Newspaper Proprietors Association of Nigeria, NPAN. Jakande ran for election as executive governor of Lagos State in 1979 on the Unity Party of Nigeria platform. His administration was effective and open and implemented the cardinal policies of his party. He introduced housing and educational programs targeting the poor, building new neighborhood primary and secondary schools, and providing free primary and secondary education. He gave poor people's children education, and many of them are now very prominent in the society today. Jakande established the Lagos State University and constructed over 30,000 housing units. After the military takeover in 1983, Jakande was charged, prosecuted, and convicted of treason and later pardoned. He served as Minister of Works under the Sani Abacha military regime. He died in Lagos on February 11, 2021. Lateef Jakande was the first civilian governor of Lagos State. Lateef Kayode Jakande, SOUQ Enlightenment.
The challenge of governance is to see how we can leverage what is on the ground and convert this to wealth for the people.
Russia, China are gaining entry into Africa, and it would appear that some Western countries are losing out.
You're working as an expatriate worker, then you're paid in your currency. But then if you must spend those money, you need to convert those money to the local currency to spend.
For Social Security to work, we need to know exactly how many we are. We don't have a precise number. We need to know exact location of people.
When we address this exchange rate volatility, we will see definitely cost of goods and services will come down.
From a security point of view, we should employ the technology to ensure that we can track individuals and goods within the continent.
This is Early Exchange with Femi Ayodele.
You know, the Early Exchange is all about shaping policy and advancing development. With our conversation today, we're set to give you the best of programming.
And Blessing Aiche.
We do hope that you enjoy every time you spend with us here today. The world needs peace. The world needs to come to a round table and find solutions to the pockets of troubles.
Early Exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
Yes, good morning and welcome to Early Exchange, where we talk about issues related to business, finance, policy and the economy. I am Femi Ayodele. As you know, that Early Exchange is all about shaping policy and advancing development. With our conversation, that's exactly what we're going to do today. Today we'll be looking at the minimum wage and efforts being made by the federal government to review the minimum wage. There is also a report suggesting that Nigeria has one of the lowest minimum wage in Nigeria. How is that going to play out? Well, this is going to be the thrust of our conversation for today. You can be part of this conversation because it's your program. All you just have to do is to join us on our social media platform using the hashtag Early Exchange. Glad you have joined us. I hope you're set, because Blessing is also set to give you the best of programming this morning.
Of course I am. Good morning, Femi.
Good morning.
Good to see the latest version of you.
Oh, great.
We thank you for joining us as always on Early Exchange. Femi already has read out to you what the focus for today will be. Let's find out why some other African countries have higher minimum wage than the giant of Africa, Nigeria. But that will be after the news updates.
Good morning, Femi and Blessing, and hello Welcome to News Update on SOUQ News. I am Lovina Emma. The Nigerian government has approved the establishment of the Renewed Hope Infrastructure Fund worth $858 billion, aimed at bolstering social services across the country nationwide. The chairman of the Federal Inland Revenue Services, SOUQ Adedeji, disclosed this following the 4th Federal Executive Council meeting held in Abuja yesterday. He outlined the fund as a special purpose vehicle designed to attract crucial investments for the country's infrastructure development needs. Adedeji emphasized a holistic approach to effectively mobilize resources for national development. The initiative targets bridging an infrastructure gap exceeding $858 billion, hindering national growth. Adedeji highlighted the fund's role in addressing investors' concerns and promoting economic growth and connectivity across sectors like transport, agriculture, aviation, and education. Moving on, the Central Bank of Nigeria has released a circular to Bureau de Change Operators (BDCs), disclosing the sale of $10,000 to each BDC at an exchange rate of 1,251 naira to $1. As outlined in the circular, BDCs are mandated to sell the allocated dollars to eligible customers at a maximum spread of 1.5% above the purchase price, indicating a ceiling rate of 1,260 naira to $1. This announcement marks the reinstatement of dollar sales to BDC operators after a prolonged suspension by the central bank in 2021, which was lifted earlier this year, following the revocation of licenses of over 4,173 BDC operators in February. Away from Nigeria, Senegal's 44-year-old opposition leader Bassirou Diomaye Faye has emerged victorious as the country's next president, following his recent release from prison to contest the election. While official results were pending, the conceding defeat of the former prime minister, backed by the incumbent President Macky Sall, based on preliminary outcomes, signaled Faye's imminent triumph. In his inaugural address as president-elect, Faye pledged transparency, humility, and a relentless fight against corruption, emphasizing a commitment to rebuilding institutions. Backed by popular opposition figure Ousmane Sonko, aims to enhance Senegal's control over natural resources, advocating for national companies to prevent economic exploitation. And in Libya, the government of national unity in Libya has temporarily suspended its oil and gas minister, as announced by the Administrative Control Agency, due to an ongoing legal investigation, citing violations uncovered in case number 178. The agency's head, Abdullah Kadeber, issued a suspension against the minister in Tripoli with no further details disclosed. The agency referred to the minister using only his initials. The agency responsible for overseeing government's performance has the authority to challenge appointments to public positions and ensure public accountability. And finally, electric car maker Lucid has announced its plans to raise $1 billion in capital from an affiliate of Saudi Arabia's Public Investment Fund, resulting in an approximately 8% surge in its shares. This investment shows the company's advantage amid challenges faced by struggling EV startups, with the Saudi government holding a significant stake in the company. The investment, facilitated by Aya Third Investment Company, a PIF affiliate, involves purchasing $1 billion in convertible preferred stock with the option to convert it into approximately 280 million shares. Lucid, based in California, intends to utilize the proceeds for various corporate purposes and capital expenditure, aiming to navigate through weakened demand and intense competition, especially from Tesla. And with that, we call it a wrap on News Updates. Many thanks for watching. Stay tuned to Early Exchange with Femi Ayodele and Blessing Eche. I am Lovina Emma.
All right, thank you, Lovina, for doing what you know best, which is to take us around the world with a news update. We'll go on a short break now. When we return, we'll commence our major conversation for today, looking at our big story. Stay with us.
My name is Dr. Ajili Tobi.
My name is Etemari Glover. Naomi, well done, and shout out to SOUQ News.
Shout out to SOUQ News. I want to encourage everyone to keep watching SOUQ News.
Shout out to SOUQ News, and yes, tune into them.
Keep watching SOUQ News. They are one in town.
Hey, we're watching SOUQ News.
Keep watching SOUQ News.
Keep watching SOUQ News. Catch them on YouTube and all social media channels.
Hey, my name is Frank Edowo, and I'm imploring you. No, forget that. I am forcing you, coercing you to always stay tuned to SOUQ News for your news requirements.
In the heart of sub-Saharan Africa, where commerce meets progress, welcome to SOUQ News, your source for business, economy, and development insight that drive nations forward. From the vibrant streets of Lagos, Africa's fastest economic hub, SOUQ News takes you on a journey of discovery, analyzing and reporting the facts that lay the foundation for growth and development. We don't just report the news, we create it. SOUQ News is more than a channel. It is a catalyst for change, spotlighting the stories that shape economies, inspire entrepreneurs, and fuel progress. Covering business, finance, technology, energy, and many more, SOUQ News provides a daily deep dive into the stories that matter, interviews with industry titans, and analysis that empowers your understanding of economic landscape. Join us daily as we dissect, discuss, and deliver the most relevant and factual news on business and the economy. SOUQ News is your trusted guide, empowering you with the knowledge to make informed decisions. Tafawa Balewa Square, TBS. Tafawa Balewa Square was initially used as a horsing ground called Lagos Race Course. The edifice was constructed by General Yakubu Gowon in 1972 and named after Nigeria's first Prime Minister, Sir Tafawa Balewa. Tafawa Balewa Square is located at 45/57 Mase Bangboshe Street on Lagos Island, Lagos, and referred to as TBS. TBS is a 50,000-seater capacity venue and houses the Remembrance Arcade, the 26-story Independence House, which at a time was the country's tallest building. When Lagos served as the country's seat of government, the National Assembly Complex was within the TBS. Also in the square are the National Broadcasting Commission Office, the Nigerian Hydrological Services Agency Office, shopping centers, travel agencies, restaurants, car parking lots, and a bus terminal. Tafawa Balewa Square is adorned with beautiful statues of white horses and red eagles, symbols of strength and dignity. Our historic neighbors include the King's College and the Holy Cross Cathedral. Tafawa Balewa Square hosted some of the country's memorable events, such as the Independence Day in 1960, when Nigeria gained independence from Britain, the Armed Forces Remembrance Day, which is celebrated annually on January 15. The edifice is a national cultural asset. Tafawa Balewa Square, SOUQ Enlightenment.
The challenge of governance is to see how we can leverage what is on the ground and convert this to wealth for the people.
Russia, China are gaining entry into Africa, and it would appear that some Western countries are losing out.
You're working as an expatriate worker, then you're paid in your currency. But then if you must spend those money, you need to convert those money to the local currency to spend.
For Social Security to work, we need to know exactly how many we are. We don't have a precise number. We need to know exact location of people.
When we address this exchange rate volatility, we will see definitely cost of goods and services will come down.
From a security point of view, we should employ the technology to ensure that we can track individuals and goods within the continent.
This is Early Exchange with Femi Ayodele.
You know, the Early Exchange is all about shaping policy and advancing development. With our conversation today, we're set to give you the best of programming.
And Blessing Aiche.
We do hope that you enjoy every time you spend with us here today. The world needs peace. The world needs to come to a round table and find solutions to the pockets of troubles.
Early Exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
Glad to know you're still there with us. Let's begin our business of shaping policy for today by looking at the minimum wage in Nigeria and efforts being made by the federal government to review this. Given the present economic reality, there has been concerns in Nigeria about the present minimum wage, which is why many Nigerians are calling for review. At the moment, an average worker in Nigeria earns about 30,000 naira, which is equivalent to about $20, which was introduced in the year 2018. Now there are conversations around increasing this minimum wage, which the federal government has set up committees to look into these. Hopefully by next month or by May, the federal government may likely announce a new minimum wage. But the conversation is, how will Nigerians survive given the present economic reality? Let's shift the conversation to our guest analyst who is joining us via Zoom. We are being joined by Barrister Dotun Azan, who is a legal practitioner. Glad you have joined us this morning, Barrister Azan.
Yes, good morning. It's a pleasure to be on your program.
It's been a while. Great to have you. Right. There is a report suggesting that compared to some other African countries, like about 7 other African countries, that Nigeria has one of the lowest minimum wage in Africa. Looking at the present minimum wage, which is at 30,000 naira, equivalent to $20. What's your take on this, and how will you juxtapose this with economic realities in Nigeria?
Well, it's quite regrettable that we are discussing earnings, wages, and salaries of hardworking Nigerians whose livelihood depends on the monthly salaries from the government, that is exclusively now from the government coffers as staffs or civil servants, as we may call it, that their earnings is still pegged at no less than $20 a month. Considering the high level of inflation, considering the growth in the state of exponential increment in all staples, foods, petrol, everything as far as the whole country is concerned, is skyrocketed beyond the reach of an average Nigerian. So, which means that while all these are growing and exponentially out of reach of the common man, the belief of the federal government is without planning for the staff and civil servants, because where they are planning, we ought to have bypassed this scenario, because daily, in terms of what we are currently faced with now, we ought to have bypassed and grow all these situations. But because we are not in a state whereby people are governed by policy, because where government can, the senators, the president, and the judicial salaries can be reviewed at will, and there is no limit to what the president can collect monthly. There should also be no limit to what we should be thinking about, to how growth of salary should also be. In a standard environment of this nature, considering the high level inflation, what we should be looking at now is not less than ₦1 million a month, in view of the current predicaments that are presently in the state. But regrettably, even the agitation from the federal government to increase the minimum wage to 500,000, do we even have the capacity? The NLC are demanding for 1 million, now reduced to 500. So it is not just that kind of, those kind of things are not necessary. There should have been progressional, incremental process for the past 10 years now. And people would have known, oh, with what is going on, they should even monthly, yearly, there should have been that progressional increment, not a stagnated increment or a fiat that, oh, tomorrow we are increasing and let every state government. At the end of the day, state governors do not even have capacity. Then if you are looking at the federal government, what about private establishments? So there should be a national minimum wage standard, not for civil servants alone. There should be other welfare programs like insurance, the leave process. Even workers don't hardly go on leave these days. Even their leaves are converted to working because there's nothing you are going to go and enjoy during your leave period because you can always witness it. Unlike before, you know that this man is on leave. But these days, workers that are even on leave will want to prefer to be at work because there's nothing to go and rest because the policy planning is not fit to accommodate such. So there is a need for us to look holistically on the paradigm that the federal government needs to really come up with a national policy plan or minimum wage that will both affect both private and government workers. That will also, the government don't need to also look at salary earnings. They should also provide the enabling environment that will ease the pressure. Like there should be government food bank, there should be other critical area free health for ages of so like age 60 and above, free health, age 5 to 18, there should also be free health because that is the age bracket of surviving to be a youth of this country. So there should be some other things that will create that enabling environment. There should be constant power supply. If you have that, it will reduce the level of poverty that we have. So unfortunately, being a poverty-stricken nation, because that is who we are one of the most highest poverty indices of the world. They even tagged us the poverty capital of the world because of how we have stagnated our development and progress. So there is a need that in as much as the current federal government is trying to dance, I will call it dance to the tune of labor unions, such decisions should not be done out of pressure or out of compulsion. Such decision needs to be progressively looked at. If they cannot afford 500,000, let them not go and make an announcement that will become a total breakdown because what are the indices to support the payment? Do they have most federal agencies and government workers just go to earn salary? They don't even do anything on the table. There are some ministries that all they just do is to collect monthly salary because no docket, no file is brought to their office because those offices are moribund. So, and that is the reason why a Rossoni report was brought on the deck that there are a lot of government parastatals that are just duplicating duties. So, and that is wastages, waste of resources, waste of time and confusion. So when government needs to come up with all this whole plan, let them be properly situated and don't let them rush at delivering fake promises of, or I will call it voicemail, that people will not just see the reality of those promises. So I want to advise that the federal government should do more in that regard.
Okay, thank you very much. You've mentioned that the review of the wage should not be done under duress or under pressure. Now, what should be the ideal for wage review, not just for federal government parastatals, but across board? I'm talking about the private sector as well. And the report that says that Nigeria has the lowest minimum wage when compared to some other African countries. What do you think is the reason for this?
Well, the proper thing, because I've already suggested that considering the current reality, an average civil servant or employer or an average employee should earn no less than $1 million, because that is what will meet up your family needs, your immediate needs, and the rigors of expenses that people are faced with when it comes to expenditure, without leveraging on equitable revenue to meet up those expenditures. And in view of that, the suggestion might be unrealistic, might be like a flash in the pan, but it is the reality that the government ought to have. We need to be talking about $1,005 a month, as at now, considering our level of economy, considering where we ought to be by now. But corruption, moral corruption, financial corruption, social corruption have killed the patriotic zeal that citizens need to have in developing a state. Everybody wants to earn more than their salary. Everybody wants to steal money. So, and it is not about either you are a Christian or a Muslim. It's all about the national menace we are faced with. So, in looking at the solution, that is supposed to be, but because we lack planning, the SOUQ, the Federal Ministry of Finance, there is no proper planning to situate what should be an averagely a worker to be taking home pay. But whereby these things are not there, there is no way that we are not going to start from planning ourselves. And how do we plan ourselves? Government needs to come with a lot of rebates than now, in terms of tax, in terms of trying to shuffle and ameliorate the pain. Because the salary, no matter what they want to jack it up to, the capacity of government to meet up, so that there will not be no salary owings. We have seen in a state of this, in this country, in Osun State, whereby people collect half salary. Where do you think that will happen in the whole wide world? Half salary in a state that there is government, but because government is like a dastical, government is borrowed more than they can chew. They mortgage the future of their state by borrowing and without any means of repayment, trying to shift those borrowings to successive government. So these are issues that have affected us year in, year out. So, and there is a need for us to guide the process appropriately. So I will still implore that government needs to do the needful by planning ourselves, ensuring that worker salaries are tagged. But what would we do? How do we now go forward? Is about from the local level, from the local government level, there should be some level of grading. State workers, there should be some level of grading. There should be a lot of reviews around it, not just minimum wage. You know, that word minimum wage, then what is the maximum? So you see people earning 800,000, white people at the lowest kid are still earning this menial salary. Because those that are on this policy, driving policy makers, earn higher salaries and they don't even know what that minimum earners life look like. They don't experience it. So there's no way you talk about it. It doesn't sound real to them because they are part.
Oh, the internet is playing a fast one. So, you know, he was actually talking about the concerns being raised as regards the capacity to pay. Okay, Alan is back with us. Please go ahead with your thoughts. Please go ahead.
So we're just trying to, I'm trying to paint a scenario that we need to plan ourselves clearly. We have
Okay, we seem to be having some disconnection there. So he's trying to raise concern about, you know, the capacity of the state government to pay. You know, it's one thing to ask for a review. It's another thing, you know, for private organizations, state government to be able to pay, those who are asking for 400,000 naira or 500,000, the concern is presently the minimum wage is at 30,000. There are state governments that are struggling to pay. There are organizations that are struggling to pay the 30,000 naira. Now, if you now increase it to 400,000 naira or 500,000
as the minimum wage,
as minimum wage, what's the tendency that these people will be able to pay again? So it's also of concern. My view is, which is also critical, is it about the political will or the resources that are available? Now, for instance, if you look at a state like Lagos, Lagos is one of the few states who quickly, when the issue of minimum wage came up, who quickly embraced it and also even increased it, and is at the forefront when it comes to payment of minimum wage. But the concern is this should go across board. The minimum wage Act compels every employee to be paid the minimum wage
not
as
just
required
those
by the law.
who are government employees.
Not just a selected few. So the concern now is how to sustain that. And now that there's this conversation around the increase in the minimum wage, it is also what the federal government is considering. The federal government has set up a committee to review, to seek opinions across the 36 states. And even if you look at the suggestions from the states, there are different figures. Certain states are saying 45,000, some are saying 400,000, some are saying 500,000. So it's another concern for the committee to really arrive at that minimum wage. But the conversation, hopefully by April, we should have an announcement from the federal
April is
government.
just a few days away. So when we say April, it sounds like we're talking about next year. It's just a few days. Today is the 26th day in the month of March. So in about a week, we should be saying, welcome April. April Fool's Day. It's just around the corner. But the thing here is this. Even when they say 45,000 naira of a state that are proposing 45,000 naira, with the current inflation rate, what is the value of 45,000 naira wage? What can it buy? Can it take the employee home? I doubt that seriously, because a bag of rice is well over 70,000 naira. In some cases, you get some brand for as high as 80,000 naira. So that's almost double that. I think one of the problems too, apart from the fact that government is checking to know if it can pay what labor is proposing, well, 500,000 naira for minimum wage may be on the very high side. Maybe they could calm down a bit after negotiations to some figure less than that. But one other issue is that of wage disparity. Because while the minimum wage is so low, you find that the maximum wage on the other end is also an extreme when you make that comparison between those who occupy managerial positions, for instance, directors, and those who are the top echelon. It's high compared to what those who are the bottom of the pyramid earn. So if there could be some way to reconcile it so that the gap is not so wide, I think maybe that would be a way to go. But it's even a problem to do that, because if you've already started paying a certain wage, how then do you begin to pay less that? So it's a problem. Even with the implementation of the Ronsai report, which many persons are advocating, it comes at a cost.
You see, the interesting thing is, one of the workers here, gave me an indication that what we should ask for is not even minimum wage, we should ask for living wage.
Oh, yes, because the word minimum just makes it look like, okay, what's the least we can do?
And if you look at the present economic reality, the last time this was reviewed was in 2018. If you look at the exchange
6 years down the line,
the exchange of naira to dollar then was just about 400 naira, but now it's
triple that, even more than triple that.
And if you look at the rate of inflation now, given the present figure, and food inflation, the food crisis we're experiencing seriously, there's a need to do that. But the other side to it is, if that happens, how sustainable it is, and then how do we arrive at a proper minimum wage for an average worker in Nigeria?
Okay, when you say an average worker, I'm with you in that, because if it's just for the civil servants, because when they increase the wage, we talked about this before, and we say that the market women have no way of knowing who's a government worker and who's working for a private firm.
In fact, the moment this happens, you will feel the pull effect. And the market will say, oh, okay, you people, your salaries have been increased, then I need to increase the prices of my goods and services so that she can get a bit from, the increase and also feel the impact. Because whether you like it, this will happen. But it's a reality, given the fact that looking at the economic reality and even the provision of the minimum wage Act, it gives room for review after some years. The last time it was done was 7 years ago, so there's a need to have a review so that it will reflect the present economic reality and an average Nigerian will be able to survive. You made a reference to the price of the bag of rice, which is about, you even said 70, it's about 80-something thousand naira.
Okay.
And so compared to the minimum,
haven't been to the market in a while.
It's part of what we do, market survey. So, so by the time you compare that to what we have now, the minimum wage is 30,000, which cannot even buy you can't afford to buy a bag of rice.
So you have to save almost 3 months' wage to buy a bag of rice. That's really appalling. But the thing is, this is something that needs to be addressed. This is an issue that needs to be addressed because a hungry man is an angry man, and I know very well that the federal government would not want to allow the situation in the country to be compounded by some unrest, protests here and there. There have been pockets of that. Few protests in some areas, though it didn't continue. But we hope that in this time, even the private sector will be carried along, and whatever is necessary, whatever needs to be done to tackle inflation, because how much of wage can they increase? We'll continue the conversation after this time. Stay tuned.
In the heart of sub-Saharan Africa, where commerce meets progress, welcome to SOUQ News, your source for business, economy, and development insight that drive nations forward. From the vibrant streets of Lagos, Africa's fastest economic hub, SOUQ News takes you on a journey of discovery, analyzing and reporting the facts that lay the foundation for growth and development. We don't just report the news, we create it. SOUQ News is more than a channel. It is a catalyst for change, spotlighting the stories that shape economies, inspire entrepreneurs, and fuel progress. Covering business, finance, technology, energy, and many more, SOUQ News provides a daily deep dive into the stories that matter, interviews with industry titans, and analysis that empowers your understanding of economic landscape. Join us daily as we dissect, discuss, and deliver the most relevant and factual news on business and the economy. SOUQ News is your trusted guide, empowering you with the knowledge to make informed decisions. The National Theatre, Igomu, built during the military regime of Olusegun Obasanjo and finished in the time for the Second World Festival of Black Arts and Culture, FESTAC, in 1977. The theatre holds amazing treasures and memories. The artworks fill everyone with pride. The National Arts Theatre is visible from the motorway which connects Lagos Island and the mainland. The National Theatre is packed with the artworks of a legendary contemporary Nigerian artist, stained glass walls by Yusuf Grillo, sculptures and murals by Lamidi Fakeye, Erabo Emopai, and many others. It was put to full use for a month as one of the 4 venues of the Second World Black and African Festival of Arts and Culture, tagged FESTAC 77. The complex hosted 16,000 participants from 56 African countries and the diaspora in an unprecedented showcase of African music, fine art, literature, drama, dance, and religion. The National Art Theatre was built and designed by Techno Expert Stroll, a Bulgarian company mirroring the Palace of Culture and Sports in Varna, Bulgaria. Completed in 1976, the building is one of the largest and most beautiful of its kind on the African continent. It consists of a central hall with 5,000 seats, a collapsible stage that can be quickly rebuilt, a conference hall with 1,600 seats, 2 large exhibition halls, and 2 cinemas with 800 seats each. The theatre complex has a dressing room for artists, a garage, offices, coffee bars, and a buffet. It has indoor TV and radio systems, as well as booths with facilities for simultaneous translation of languages and hectares of lush green lawn around. The majestic structure sits in Igomu like a quiet mountain, mesmerizing visitors and passers-by. The National Theatre, SOUQ enlightenment. We've got just what you need right here at Femi Wash Media. Call it the Midas touch and you wouldn't be wrong. Let us record, produce, mix and master your audio like nobody does. Reach us on our contact today for the best quality job.
Broad Street. Broad Street, situated in Lagos Island, is steeped in Nigerian history. Once the biggest financial hub of the country, it housed the headquarters of major banks, linked to CBN, the stock exchange, and the loads of lender companies. Broad Street is a historically significant street. It has played a central role in the development of Lagos and history, an important commercial and administrative center for the British colonial authorities. It was also a home to some of the city's earliest modern buildings. Broad Street was a residential area in the pre-colonial era. With the British came the Methodist Boys High School in 1878 and the Broad Street Prison in 1882, renamed Freedom Park. The General Hospital, which was a British military hospital, was built in 1893, being the first general hospital in Nigeria. The old British Secretariat building, which is now the Federal Ministry of Justice, was built in 1906. Broad Street has seen a full turn into modern commercial office blocks, complexes, skyscrapers, and markets from the outer marina through Akpombo, early into the Adeniji Adele Road. Broad Street is one of the busiest streets in Nigeria on weekdays, where commercial activities take place day and night. From modern buildings to ancient structures, this street gives one a raw dose of life in Lagos. Broad Street is often referred to as Lagos Financial District. It boasts a mix of architectural styles, reflecting its long history, colonial-era buildings, Victorian and Edwardian architectural features, alongside more modern skyscrapers and structures. Broad Street remains a vital, vibrant part of the Nigerian economy. Broad Street. SOUQ Enlightenment.
My name is Yinka Babalola.
My name is Ijoma Pelokoro.
My name is Joshua Hassan.
I am Rotarian or Mosunde Lawson.
It's Ife Yunwarita Ejeze. My friends call me Ife.
My name is Rosemary Dare.
I'm inviting you to keep watching SOUQ News. It's the right station to tune to.
I like SOUQ News. SOUQ News is good.
I want to charge you all to listen to SOUQ News, watch the news.
You can have unlimited news, first time.
Find SOUQ News. Be with SOUQ News. Never switch off. You are better for it. SOUQ News is the real thing.
Listen to their coverage and you'll be glad you did.
Turn to your YouTube, turn to your Instagram, turn to all your digital channels and look for SOUQ News.
Keep watching.
Keep watching.
Please guys, keep watching.
SOUQ News.
Idumota Market. Eko Idumota, once a residential neighborhood, is home to Idumota Market located on Lagos Island. It is one of the oldest and arguably one of the largest markets in West Africa. Idumota is a historic neighborhood adjacent to the Lagos port that facilitated the slave trade and later, under the British indirect rule, it surrounded to exports that fueled the colonial enterprise. Idumota was also the location of an armed forces remembrance cenotaph called Soja Idumota, built as a monument to Nigerian soldiers who served with the West African Frontier Force. An Eyo Masquerade statue and a clock tower are also some monuments at Idumota. Idumota Market is so popular that large sales are recorded as early as 7 a.m. The market is made up of hundreds of locked-up shops occupying several multi-story buildings, with some measuring about 5 or more floors. In 2010, the Lagos State government demolished some illegal structures in order to improve vehicular and human movement in and around the markets. During weekdays, the neighborhood of Idumota is densely populated by shoppers, traders, and bus passengers. From the Carter Bridge, ascending into Lagos Island, passengers can see the neighborhood before disembarking at their final destination. Idumota Market accommodates the substantial inflow of imported goods. The bulk of import from abroad are routed first through Idumota and then on to other markets through Nigeria and other West and Central African countries. The energy of private Idumota traders and wholesalers facilitate this activity, where millions of US dollars worth of wholesale is exchanged daily. Idumota Markets, SOUQ Enlightenment.
The challenge of governance is to see how we can leverage what is on the ground and convert this to wealth for the people.
Russia, China are gaining entry into Africa, and it would appear that some Western countries are losing out.
You're working as an expatriate worker, then you're paid in your currency. But then if you must spend those money, you need to convert those money to the local currency to spend.
For Social Security to work, we need to know exactly how many we are. We don't have a precise number. We need to know exact location of people.
When we address this exchange rate volatility, we will see definitely cost of goods and services will come down.
From a security point of view, we should employ the technology to ensure that we can track individuals and goods within the continent.
This is Early Exchange with Femi Ayodele.
You know, the Early Exchange is all about shaping policy and advancing development. With our conversation today, we're set to give you the best of programming.
And Blessing Aiche.
We do hope that you enjoy every time you spend with us here today. The world needs peace. The world needs to come to a round table and find solutions to the pockets of troubles.
Early Exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
All right, it's the Early Exchange, and we're still looking at the minimum wage in Nigeria, considered to be one of the lowest in Africa. Let me give you a background to this report. A survey was done among 7 African countries, and that of Nigeria were considered or reported to be the lowest. The highest has to be that of Seychelles, which is about $456. Followed by Libya, which is at $325. Then Morocco is on the list as third, which is about $315. Followed by Gabon, which is about $256. Then South Africa, $242. Then Mauritius has about $240. And then Equatorial Guinea to be $224. So if you look at this survey compared to what we have in Nigeria, an average worker in Nigeria earns about 30,000 naira. If you do the equation, you do the arithmetic using the exchange rate of about 1,500 naira to $1, that gives you about $20. The exchange rate now is between 1,400 and 1,450 to $1. So if you do that arithmetic, you discover that an average worker in Nigeria earns a little above $20, which has cause for concern. But now let's shift the conversation back to our guest who is joining us again via Zoom. We have, Alante is not ready yet. Blessing, we made reference to some of the decisions made by some of these states' governments as regards the proposer for minimum wage. Let me go through the list as well. The ones that were done between 7 African countries, discover that Nigeria happens to be the lowest. But as a result of the responsibility given to the committee in charge of the review of the minimum wage, they did a public hearings to seek the opinion of stakeholders across the 36 states in Nigeria. And they arrived at 485,000 naira for Northwest, that's the proposer. For Northeast, 560,000 naira. For North Central, over 700,000 naira. And
minimum wage.
Minimum wage. And for Southwest, that's 794,000 naira. For South-South, you have 850,000 naira. Southeast, you have 540,000 naira. And Adamawa and Bauchi surprisingly asked for 45,000 naira as new minimum.
So who's asking? Is it the NLC that is making that demand?
In some
from
states, NLC, in some states, like that of Adamawa and Bauchi, it's the state governors or the state government.
State governors are proposing to NLC.
Are being conservative this time around, you know.
No,
yeah.
Let's get this.
Okay.
The figures you just read out now. Who's proposing those figures as minimum wage?
The Nigeria Labour Congress.
To state governors.
Exactly. But the two exceptions that you have from Adamawa and Bauchi, that proposal is from the state government, which is 45,000 naira.
45,000.
So they are being realistic, they are being conservative.
Femi, you took the words out of my mouth.
Yeah.
It's the real versus maybe wishful thinking. We understand the current economic realities, but I think the NLC from this various states, the chapters of NLC in this state, should be asking themselves, the 30,000 naira minimum wage that is being paid, how many states are paying as and when due?
Well, that for some, you could argue that could be an excuse, because if you look at the reality, would you say the worth of an average worker in Nigeria, looking at the minimum wage, 30,000 naira, is that the ideal compared to other African countries, like what this report has suggested? You know, the argument on this end that, okay, the capacity to pay could be valid. But on the other hand, if you look at it, it's a necessity. It's necessary that the review is done to reveal the present economic reality and to be able to empower an average, you know, worker, and for them to be able to survive. Of course, you can, you know, you can have all the money in this world, but the basics that are required to meet your needs are also expected to be incommensurate with your expenses and the economic reality of where you are. Looking at the standard of living, the inflation is about 31-point-something%. The last time the review was done, the exchange rate to $1 was just at 400.
Agreed.
But now, it's times 3 of it.
There is no disputing any of those facts. But the question is this: are we living in those economies? Do we have the same conditions? Inflation rate is at 31.70% in Nigeria. Food inflation is way higher, around 37%. All right. So if you're proposing a minimum wage of 700,000 naira in line with what is being paid or what has been earned in other African countries, you have to take into consideration the ability of the state governors and the federal governments to pay that. Else you are just having an exercise. You're talking.
That's why they use the word proposal.
Yes,
so what
it's
it
a
means
proposal.
Is when you get to the negotiation table.
This is my point, Femi.
Yeah.
That is on one hand. And then on the other hand, let's also look at the implication of raising wage to that level. Even if the federal government or the state governors can do that, what would that mean for the inflation rate? What would that mean for the private sector? These are considerations that we cannot leave out of this.
So what you have now is just a draft, a proposal. So what that means is if NLC is proposing 700,000,
yes.
So what they emphasize is that by the time you get to the negotiation table, the parties involved can beat it down, can negotiate. You know, there's room for bargaining.
But you also know that sometimes the asking price determines the extent to which the final negotiation will be done.
Which is
so
why
if you already
prefer
set it at 700,000, 800,000, then you know that where there will be a compromise will not be too far.
All right. It's getting interesting. Orlando Guest is ready for us now. Let's seek his opinion. Bryce, glad to have you join us once again.
Yeah, sorry for the break. Sorry.
We understood it wasn't your making, it was beyond you. All right, it's the issue of the internet, which we quite understand. Let's get back to the conversation. Earlier, we were making reference to some concerns about the capacity of the state government to be able to pay. So I'd like you to continue your thought in this regard.
Well, I've been listening to your conversation. It goes to say that we are not getting anywhere because the proposals, the means of achieving this is, to me, is very vague, is opaque. It's not transparent because you don't sit with the people you want to pay and let them dictate what they want to collect. They will mention any amount that best suits their pocket because it's like you are giving a John the Baptist offer to seek for the head of the John the Baptist. They will ask for more than what they can make as far as the state is concerned. It's all about the economy. So what I want to request is that let us plan appropriately and adequately so that we can now begin to determine the way forward. The last year, the TUC and the NLC and TUC were agitating for 200,000 naira. What has changed to demand for 1 million naira? So these all issues will keep to erode our state without us having adequate planning. So without us having adequate planning, we'll keep to relate to ourselves as if we don't have leadership, we don't have government. Government is different from what we are having now. The people are not being carried along. Government is looking for a one-size-fits-all to shut down. You don't shut down people. Let them know the reality that is on ground. We have, as at now, our debt profile is on the highest. It's on the highest peak. How do we even solve that problem? We need to get solutions. So the myriad of challenge is quite higher than the solution. And if we have to keep to talk about solution, the government needs to come clean, letting us know, oh, I don't have this capacity now, but this is the law. Let us have a national law on to guide employability law to ensure that whatever the government promises, it will not become a voicemail, that people can actually earn a better labor and people can be properly monitored even while they are being employed. Averagely, I always argue on this fact that how do you think a level 4 officer or a level 5 officer, level 6 officer will be building a mansion and riding on a exotic car in the city of Abuja? But because they don't believe in salary. A lot of these workers don't even believe in salary. If they believe in salary, you would have seen their agitation on the streets. You would have seen them turning down they will not even have money to even go to work because the 30,000 naira or you are talking about will not even earn you more than 1 day, just for that 1 day. It's a 1 day salary. So, but the survivor, how do you think we are talking about this money? Is it that there is always another means that our federal workers survive? Or is it that they are think that they are just changing the system? Why is it that the civil servants are always found in the midst of corruption? And if you want to talk about anything that is happening, you always know that they are the conduit of corruption because they don't believe in salary. If they actually believe in salary, then it will become a collective battle for the entire nation. Even the unemployed Nigerians. That's why I've always come to blame the NLC. Anytime they are going to strike, you're only representing the workers, which is just a fragment of just 30% of average the entire total population that is unemployed or do not have any means of livelihood is over 70%. Those that have common livelihood that can survive, they are less than 30%. Why would they be the one to dictate strike? If they have any issue, they just always want to shut down and they negotiate their personal interests out of it. They sit down at round table without commensurate. Do you know how many times the NLC has sat with federal government in the past over salary, over strikes, over issues? You begin to see now ASUU will bring their own demanding for job, for work they never did, that they never served. We went on strike, you want to be paid for what you know, that is unpatriotic. You know, I believe if there is going to be strike, let people go on hunger strike. Let us know that they are actually passionate. If they are now about dying, then the federal government should come to our rescue. But not all this kind of premeditated strike to demand for increment in salary. To every junction, you just see strike bombs. No, all we need to do this period is to have a national policy plan on those that are employed, those that are unemployed. How do you close the bracket? How do you also give them a livelihood? How do they even be? Because they are not even on the radar of minimum wage. So all these things are very, very key that we need proper planning to achieve. If there is no sit down, that we don't sit out to discuss this issue and we begin to take it haphazardly, we'll get nowhere.
In line with making it a reality, a new minimum wage for Nigeria, one concern as to why the government, whether federal government or state government, finds it difficult to take on or to pay a new minimum wage is the issue of ghost workers. Now, it is said that the federal government is the single largest employer of labor in Nigeria, and that goes same for states. But what about the issue of ghost workers? What can be done to rule that out so the government knows those who are really in its employ and see if it can pay a new minimum wage?
Well, on the issue of ghost worker, it goes to say that these are a list of workers that are not in service. Their names are on the roll call of salary, minimum wage. They are even posted. They are even given promotion. This is like a name that is just placed in the record, and the salary is being cleared off. I think there is one country, one of these African country, one of the person that pays the president's salary was already earning more than half of the entire citizen salary, the entire nation's budget, because he got almost not less than $1 million plus on ghost salary earnings, meaning he just got those names from local government to everywhere, and their monies that are being collected them monthly are just going into some private accounts. This is wrong. This is the situation of power corrupt and absolute power corrupt, absolutely. What is the EFCC, the NFIU doing in respect of verification? Even when they say they are doing verification of workers, those that organize this verification are behind the ghost workers syndrome. So we can't just shut it out all because we are talking about ghost workers from federal. There are ghost workers in state that some state governors are behind. There are some ghost workers that there are some service people are behind at the end of the day.
All right, Barrister Dafsun Azan, we just have to thank you for your submission. With what you've said, we are hoping that as the federal government considers the review of the minimum wage, all those things will be put into consideration, and then the Nigerian workers will have reasons to smile going to the banks. Thank you so much for your time and commitment.
Thank you, and God bless.
All right, it's time for us to go on another break. When we return, we continue our conversation. Stay with us.
The challenge of governance is to see how we can leverage what is on the ground and convert this to wealth for the people.
Russia, China are gaining entry into Africa, and it would appear that some Western countries are losing out.
You're working as an expatriate worker, then you're paid in your currency. But then if you must spend those money, you need to convert those money to the local currency to spend.
For Social Security to work, we need to know exactly how many we are. We don't have a precise number. We need to know exact location of people.
When we address this exchange rate volatility, we will see definitely cost of goods and services will come down.
From a security point of view, we should employ the technology to ensure that we can track individuals and goods within the continent.
This is Early Exchange with Femi Ayodele.
You know, the Early Exchange is all about shaping policy and advancing development. With our conversation today, we're set to give you the best of programming.
And Blessing Aiche.
We do hope that you enjoy every time you spend with us here today. The world needs peace. The world needs to come to a round table and find solutions to the pockets of troubles.
Early Exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
My name is Dr. Ajili Tobi.
My name is Etemere Glover. Naomi, well done, and shout out to SOUQ News.
Shout out to SOUQ News. I want to encourage everyone to keep watching SOUQ News.
Shout out to SOUQ News, and yes, tune into them.
Keep watching SOUQ News. They are one in town.
Hey, we're watching SOUQ News.
Keep watching SOUQ News.
Keep watching SOUQ News. Catch them on YouTube and all social media channels.
Hey, my name is Frank Edowo, and I'm imploring you. No, forget that. I am forcing you, coercing you So always stay tuned to SOUQ News for your news requirements.
The challenge of governance is to see how we can leverage what is on the ground and convert this to wealth for the people.
Russia, China are gaining entry into Africa, and it would appear that some Western countries are losing out.
You're working as an expatriate worker, then you're paid in your currency. But then if you must spend those money, you need to convert those money to the local currency to spend.
For Social Security to work, we need to know exactly how many we are. We don't have a precise number. We need to know exact location of people.
When we address this exchange rate volatility, we will see definitely cost of goods and services will come down.
From a security point of view, we should employ the technology to ensure that we can track individuals and goods within the continent.
This is Early Exchange with Femi Ayodele.
You know, the Early Exchange is all about shaping policy and advancing development. With our conversation today, we're set to give you the best of programming.
And Blessing Aiche.
We do hope that you enjoy every time you spend with us here today. The world needs peace. The world needs to come to a round table and find solutions to the pockets of troubles.
Early Exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
From minimum wage, let's look at foreign portfolio investment in Nigeria. Yes, it's going well for the naira against the dollar. The tide has turned in favor of the naira. That's been over a week now. We hope it's sustained. But foreign investors are asking for more. What more are they asking for? Sit back and watch the show. You will find out. Now, we'll be joined virtually by our guest, who is Dr. Yele Okiremi, who is the Managing Director, CEO of Precise Financial Systems, to look at what will encourage foreign portfolio investments in Nigeria. Good morning. Welcome to the show. Dr. Yele, can you hear me? Please unmute your mic so we can have the conversation.
Yes, I can hear you, Blessing. Good morning. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you too?
Excellent. How are you?
All right, let's look at foreign portfolio investments in Nigeria.
Just like you rightly said, ease of repatriation is necessary. And I think with the way things are structured in Nigeria today, I do not think anybody should complain about ability to repatriate their money, because what is going on, and this is what foreign investors will definitely delight at, is where you have predictable exchange rate regime, where there are no what I would call sacred cows, so to speak. So it is transparent. So I think pretty much we are getting there. In fact, I think pretty much at the moment we are there. Investors today can bring in money and they can take out their money without much ado once all the due process is followed. Some other reasons why foreign investors are going to be, concerned for any country. There are certain other things they are looking at. So essentially, for you to come into a country that particularly you are not a citizen or you have never been very, very conversant with previously, the rule of law is very important. How independent is the judiciary? If the judiciary is not strong and independent, then you expect to see less foreign flows coming into such countries. Property rights enforcement. That's another issue that every interesting, any intelligent foreign investor will be looking at. How easy do I have my property rights enforced? So, and when I talk about property rights, I'm talking about both physical and intellectual property rights. How easy are they to get enforced? And is that the central bank in its own self doesn't create foreign exchange. It doesn't create foreign money. Yes, the central bank governor has the capacity to create local money, has the power. Perhaps the only person that has the power to print naira. unfortunately, his powers doesn't extend to creating foreign money. And therefore, if you are looking at foreign monies, then you're going to be looking at the fiscal side of things. So when you talk about that, you're going to look at how productive the economy is. You're going to look at not only how productive the economy is, you're going to look at how open to trade the economy is for attracting foreign monies. Now, so when you have attracted foreign monies, which is, like I said, happening on the fiscal side, then of course you expect a smart central bank governor to be able to manage that you have created, that the economy has generated. And that's where you begin to see the foreign exchange policies that are completely within the purview of the central bank governor. But one of the things I say, I always make that joke. But when I was a younger entrepreneur, I'm still a young entrepreneur for some time. But about 30 years ago, or thereabout when I started business, I would say that, look, listen, it's easy to be the financial controller of NNPC or Saudi Aramco when millions of dollars are flowing in every day, and all you need to do is allocate those resources. But if you want to show that you're a brilliant accountant, come and be the accountant or financial controller of a small company at that time like mine, where you have very little money that's coming in. Well, of course, we understand that there's a fundamental principle in economics that is called scarcity, which means that the resources will not go around, generally speaking. However, when you have access to more resources, it's a lot easier for central bank governors to operate. So to make the life of the central bank governor easy, the fiscal side has to be very, very strong. Now, when the fiscal side is strong enough, then you begin to look at the ingenuity and the capacity, competence, and of course, the integrity of the central bank governor. Because again, doesn't matter how much resources you have, if you have a poor management of the central bank, then you begin to see the kind of things we used to see in the past, where nobody knows what the exchange rate is. You have about 6, 7 exchange rates. No foreign investor wants to see that kind of a thing. So essentially, with the fiscal side taken care of, where you are generating and creating sufficient foreign inflows by either productivity and trade, or inflows either by remittances or by investments, then of course the integrity and the competence of the central bank governor becomes very, very critical. And I think so far in this particular central bank leadership, I have seen both competence and reasonable integrity.
So how can the CBN address the operational bottlenecks of foreign portfolio investments, particularly for investors who want to invest in the local bond markets or the open markets?
So when we talk about, so essentially you are talking about how easy is it for investors to influence? Is that correct? Is that what you mean, Blessing?
That's what I mean.
Oh, excellent. So essentially, there may be, well, I won't say bottlenecks, I will say bureaucracy. And some of the bureaucracy is necessary bureaucracy. Essentially, the central bank governor wants to actually verify that the amount of money that you claim that you are importing into the country is what is going to be imported. Otherwise, people may not even bring in any money at all into the country, and then they now want to repatriate so much from the country. So essentially, the verification process of how much money you say you are bringing in is the key thing. And I think there are several mechanisms by which the central bank or the central bank governor can make this happen. I mean, the very easiest of them is agreements of what I call some escrow agreements, which means that if you say you want to put two things compensate capital or money. Money is the only commodity that has 4 prices. So money has a face value, which, 1 naira must be 1 naira face value. It has, where you say it costs 1 naira to produce 1 naira. It has a real value. That's what you talk about, how much you can buy with it. It has exchange rates, which is a value of money as well. And it has interest rates. which is also time value of money. Now, take a look at it generally speaking. If you hold all the other factors, all the other three factors constant, then you realize that the interest rate is definitely going to attract capital or money coming into any system. So you see that when the central bank jacks up interest rates, if you hold all other factors constant, you expect that you have more money flowing in, because investors would see that as a compensation for what they are bringing in. And so you expect that when you have that kind of a thing happening, you have a vibrant bond or treasury bill or just a money market. You see vibrancy in that market, particularly from foreign investors and even local investors.
So Nigeria's external reserve has grown a little, but what is the role of the country's external reserve in the confidence of investors?
So again, let me explain just, and I know you know this, but just for our audience to understand the essence of reserves. You know, foreign reserves, so to speak, of nations is the same thing like share capital in normal business. And what these two things actually do is just to show the capacity or the capability or resilience of.
All right, let's look at the business environment in Nigeria. When it comes to ease of doing business, Nigeria is ranked below the ladder. Now, what are the critical steps you expect the federal government to take to be able to improve these and to be able to also attract foreign investments into Nigeria? Talking about the ease of doing business, the business environment, the business climate in Nigeria. What are some of these critical steps that should be taken by the federal government to improve it?
Well, thank you, Femi. Now, when we look at the ease of doing business, there are quite a few things that we can unpack in that particular gamut. All right. So ease of doing business suggests the index in the country. And that's very important. You see, you know, in some countries, I make specific reference to the United States of America. Do you know why they take illicit money very seriously the way they do? The reason why they would actually use the full force of the law to go after anybody that is caught, getting involved in things like bribery or money laundering, it's not because of any reason, but because where you have illicit monies coming into any economy, those are the kind of things that have the capacity to cause major distortions in the business flow, and then they affect what I call the compensation mechanism. So then you realize that in such institutions or in such countries, the best may not necessarily get the best deals. And of course, nobody likes that. And I make specific example to what the former central bank governor, Lamido Sanusi, made. When he said that, this is a system where from his garden, he could make a phone call to staff. So when we begin to have such things, then of course, you begin to see a lot more people having more confidence for production. But one more important thing about what I was talking about illicit funds in markets is that it invariably discourages people who are smart and brilliant and productive enough to help the economy go forward, to also begin to go along the path of looking for easy money. And that is the worst thing that can happen to any society or any economy.
I'm going to pick up from where something you mentioned, what we put in the pot. So talking about what is being put in the pot by investors. Inflation rate in Nigeria as of today is over 31%. So how's that affecting the confidence of investors? There have been...
We've got just what you need right here at Femi Wash Media. Call it the Midas touch and you wouldn't be wrong. Let us record, produce, mix and master your audio like nobody does. Reach us on our contact today for the best quality job.
My yellow, your body
sub-Saharan Africa, where commerce meets progress. Welcome to SOUQ News, your source for business, economy, and development insight that drive nations forward. From the vibrant streets of Lagos, Africa's fastest economic hub, SOUQ News takes you on a journey of discovery, analyzing and reporting the facts that lay the foundation for growth and development. We don't just report the news, we create it. SOUQ News is more than a channel. It is a catalyst for change, spotlighting the stories that shape economies, inspire entrepreneurs, and fuel progress. Covering business, finance, technology, energy, and many more, SOUQ News provides a daily deep dive into the stories that matter, interviews with industry titans, and analysis that empowers your understanding of economic landscape. Join us daily as we dissect, discuss, and deliver the most relevant and factual news on business and the economy. SOUQ News is your trusted guide, empowering you with the knowledge to make informed decisions.
The challenge of governance is to see how we can leverage what is on the ground and convert this to wealth for the people.
Russia, China are gaining entry into Africa, and it would appear that some Western countries are losing out.
You're working as an expatriate worker, then you're paid in your currency. But then if you must spend those money, you need to convert those money to the local currency to spend.
For Social Security to work, we need to know exactly how many we are. We don't have a precise number. We need to know exact location of people.
When we address this exchange rate volatility, we will see definitely cost of goods and services will come down.
From a security point of view, we should employ the technology to ensure that we can track individuals and goods within the continent.
This is Early Exchange with Femi Ayodele.
You know, the Early Exchange is all about shaping policy and advancing development. With our conversation today, we're set to give you the best of programming.
And Blessing Aiche.
We do hope that you enjoy every time you spend with us here today. The world needs peace. The world needs to come to a round table and find solutions to the pockets of troubles.
Early Exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
Yes, indeed, it's still your favorite program where we shape policy and advance development, and we're still in that business, looking at what the federal government needs to do to attract foreign investors to Nigeria. And we still have Dr. Yele Okiremi with us. Glad to have you join us once again.
Always a pleasure.
What do you make of this decision by the CBN to mandate foreign investors to fund their accounts before engaging in treasury bill or auctions? Some have argued that that is creating another form of bottleneck. Why some would
that are coming in that the central bank governor would use or has at his disposal is escrow, and that's exactly what you're talking about. And to my mind, I said it is bureaucracy. Just like some people, a number of people may not like bureaucracy, but what I said earlier, my own judgment about that is that it is a necessary bureaucracy, because the central bank governor also has a role as a gatekeeper for the economy, protecting this economy. And as far as I'm concerned, how difficult is it to fund an account today? While we were on break, I did 2 transfers and nobody knew about it. So how difficult is it to move money? If you have the money, it shouldn't be difficult to fund your account, in my opinion. It's a bureaucracy, but it's easy to achieve.
Okay, let's move away from foreign portfolio investments, but this time around we're talking about trade. Trade to GDP ratio of several African countries, and let's see what the growth pattern is for some countries. So for Nigeria,
yeah, I'm so sorry. This is probably technology misbehaving. All right. So I was explaining how the trade to GDP ratio is calculated. All right. So essentially, you are calculating your exports as a ratio of your GDP and your import as a ratio of your GDP. When you sum it together, that's what forms your trade to GDP ratio. Now, we need to be very careful with ratios particularly, all right? So, and if you take a look at how GDP is, the formula for calculating GDP from elementary economics, it is calculated as consumption plus investment plus government expenditure plus exports minus imports, all right? So this X minus M, these are the two factors that are now being considered. And like I said, it's risky to the economy is growing. And I think the more important factor to consider is the rate of growth of the economy, of GDP, against the population growth. I think that's a much more important index to me. But the trade to GDP ratio is important, particularly if you want your economy to move more towards trade, then you probably want to monitor it a lot more. But I would say that there are a lot more concerning or interesting ratios that central bank, that finance ministers are going to be concerned about.
All right, looking at the trade to GDP ratio in Nigeria is at 22.58%, but if you wrap that up, maybe around 23%. Now, what are some of the challenges, ravaging the development of the GDP trade to GDP ratio in Nigeria? And how do we tackle some of these shortfalls, some of these setbacks, so that the trade to GDP ratio can be improved as time goes by?
Well, again, I think trade is important in any economy. So, yes, and I can see a lot of people are kind of concerned about trade to GDP ratios. And I understand, as much as possible, let us encourage importation of things that we can add value to and create more finished goods. So we are having a lot more in the value chain.
All right, let's even look at what some of these countries trading, or what is the balance of trade for some of the countries. Now, for DR Congo, which has a 95% trade to GDP ratio, it had a trade surplus of $18.63 billion in 2022. Now, Nigeria has a port that some importers do not even want to use. Some importers in Nigeria even want to bypass the Nigerian port for sometimes delayed tariffs and several other issues, and then they make use of the neighboring country's port. What can Nigeria do, even if it's not producing certain products, but to encourage the use of, to become like a hub for countries close to it, just as countries like Benin Republic have done, just like some other countries have done, to improve their trade balance? I hear that we do not have Dr. Ili Kiremi with us. He's gone, but we do hope we can get him back before we continue the show. Otherwise, we'll bring him back another time to continue that conversation. But Femi is also a Nigerian, and I'm sure that he too wonders the same thing in terms of trade. Now, one time we're having a discussion here not too long ago, we talked about Dubai, which is majorly import dependent, but because of its location, its strategic location, it's become like an import hub for other countries. So it imports and then exports to other countries. That we've also seen countries like Benin Republic do in Africa. So you find that some importers in Nigeria would rather bring in goods from Benin Republic than bring it directly through Nigerian ports. And that adds up for trade, adds up for Benin Republic in terms of trade. But Nigeria has had trade deficits for quite a long time. This, I believe, also impacts in the outcome when it comes to trade to GDP ratio. What do you think can be done to enhance the balance of trade for Nigeria?
I think the issue here is when you look at the cost of doing businesses at the ports in Nigeria, talking about the seaport, compared to other African countries, is relatively high. That's why importers, they will prefer to patronize neighboring, seaports, because Number one, looking at the inefficiencies at our ports. The first thing you look at is even the access road. Look at our ports here in Tinkan, in Apapa. Before you get access to the port, if you need to pick, look at the cost of logistics that will be involved, before you get your goods cleared, that adds to the demurrage. And what that means is the cost of doing businesses at the port, you spend more, because it will take what you should clear in 24 hours or 48 hours, even with the e-clearance or whatever strategy is being put in place. You discover that people still resort to physical examination. And what that implies is sometimes, because of the delay you experience in accessing the port, rather than spending days, you will now discover that for logistics, for you to get it done, you spend like weeks. And the cost of demurrage per day is calculated sometimes per hour, sometimes per day. And by the time you look at the cost of getting your goods out of the port, something you should have achieved within 48 hours. Now you are spending 3 days, 1 week. That adds to the cost of doing business. Another issue has to be the issue of scanner. A lot of inefficiency, the issue of technology. You hear today that scanner has broken down, then as a result of that, you resort to manual operations. And why do people bypass this? So that it's easier to have this kind of manipulation. And if that happens, so that money can exchange hands, and that will slow down the process, rather than engaging the use of technology or the use of scanners for you to be able to clear your goods, discover that manually is done. So it means you spend more days. Another factor has to be the FX issue, which is very critical. For you to be able to get that, you need to be able to access that through the parallel market, which it will cut at a higher price. So these are reasons why so many of these importers or exporters would prefer to patronize the neighboring countries like our sisters' neighbor. Even as far as Ghana, people prefer to use that corridor because it's cheaper, it's more efficient, and it's faster. And by the time you have this kind of situation, these are issues the federal government needs to address. Because if you look at that sector, it's very critical. That corridor is very critical. And if all these things are not addressed, in fact, even the issue of floating national whatever, what's more important is addressing the inefficiencies at the port. So what it means for me as an importer, if I need to clear my goods within 24 hours, and I realize that that is done, that means I am spending less. It will encourage me to further use that corridor. But when I have a neighboring country, which I know if I patronize that corridor, is going to I will be able to get my goods easily, I'll prefer. So these are the things that discourage some of these investors, and they prefer to route some of these things through the neighboring port. But if the federal government can concentrate on this, a good example is what is happening at Apapa. Look at the access road. A lot of instructions have been given for some of these vehicles to stay off the road. Yes, you give this instruction being given, but weeks after, they will return to that road. In fact, a section of the road, you can't access it because of those who wants to access the port, they will have to make use of that corridor for them to be able to get in. And if this happens, of course, those who want to do businesses will have to ask for more. So what it means is, even apart from the importers and the exporters bearing more cost, for the end users of the product, they are also going to receive part of the blame.
Femi, I'm tempted to ask if you've had some form of importation. I'm going spiritual now by Dr. Yelu Kiremi, because it seemed like where he left off, you have just wonderfully failed. Thank you so much, Femi. Yes, this is the show today, and it's been wonderful. We just have to wrap it up here because we're out of time. Join us again tomorrow, 8 a.m. West African time, for another edition of Early Exchange. It's going to be midweek edition by tomorrow. Stay with SOUQ News the rest of your day. I am Blessing Aiche. There are more programs coming your way.
As Nigerians, let's ensure we'll do whatever we can to make Nigeria better. If Nigeria is going to be better, it's going to take the input from everybody. We can't wait for foreigners to develop our nation. So let's see what we can do to develop Nigeria. And from me to you, whatever you do today, think of the interest of the nation, not just your own interest. Don't forget, Early Exchange returns tomorrow. I am Femi Ayodele. Bye for now.